Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this video will cover how to factor the greatest common factor out of a polynomial. Now, first thing you have to be able to do is you have to be able to tell that there is a common factor. So if you're looking at number one, both terms in this binomial are divisible by 5, and they each have at least one x. That means that there's a GCF of 5x. So we're going to factor that 5x out of that polynomial. Now when we factor that 5x out, again, this is a work step that I do not necessarily expect you to show, but what happens is we divide each term by the GCF, which is 5x. So once we do that, we would then turn our attention to what the answer should be. Simply put, when we do that division, the 5x moves out in front of a set of parentheses, and we're left with x plus 2 on the inside. This essentially means that factoring the greatest common factor is basically reverse distributing or undistributing. We're pulling a factor out of both terms. Now if we were to distribute, it would go right back to what it was. So distributing is how you check your answer to see if you factored correctly. In this case, if we were to distribute, we would have 5x times x, which is 5x squared, and 5x times 2, which is 10x. So you can see that that would be the opposite. That is how you check your answer. On number 2, both of these terms are divisible by 8, and they both contain an a. So the GCF would be 8a. Once again, and I will not show this in any of the additional answers, what is going to happen then is when we factor out 8a, we are going to divide both terms by 8 and by a. I will not be showing that work step again, as again we've done this several times this year, and in theory we should already know how to do it. So we have the 8a out front, and on the inside we have a minus 5. Here are 2 additional examples. Remember that this could apply to 3 terms as well. There would just be 3 things that we would be dividing and pulling out of. So on number 3, the greatest common factor is x, only x, or 1x, which means this would factor into x times x minus 4. And here the GCF would be 3x. So we'd pull out a 3x, which would leave 3x plus 4. Again, we've done this several times this year, so this should not be new material. We would always factor out the greatest common factor first if one exists. So we always check for a GCF first. That is the first step in every type of factoring, is check for a GCF. That's it for this video. Our next video will cover factoring the difference of 2 perfect squares, which is a form of factoring for binomials.